How are you? How's everything? Long time.
I'm sure you heard very well when Eugenia aptly stated that I'm borrowing someone's sleeve. I'm here to stand in briefly for my brother and friend, the host governor, Governor Aminu Waziri Tambuwal, who will soon be with us. But he considered it apt that before he comes in, I should read his speech. I was just drafted in to do this work about 30 minutes ago. And I believe that I'll do justice to this assignment. I feel highly privileged and honored to have been invited to chair the 70th birthday celebration of the internationally acclaimed cleric and public intellectual, the inimitable Catholic Bishop of Sokoto Diocese, His Lordship, Matthew Hassan Kukah. I am still at a loss as to what really qualified me to be chosen for this task. Bishop Kukah is an institution, and not a few persons would put themselves forward to be granted the privilege to chair an event in honor of this extraordinary servant of God who has made immeasurable contributions to the development of Sokoto State, Nigeria, Africa, and the global community. I am sure the highly cerebral cleric swung the lot in my favor because I am his personal friend and host governor. Bishop Kukah, better known still as Father Kukah, came to national limelight as a columnist of the New Nigerian newspaper, Kaduna. His free-flowing prose, mastery of key national issues, and pungent style endeared him to people across religious divide. He was the darling of Christian and Muslim readers. He has this ability to hold the delicate balance at all times. Although Bishop Kukah's writings and contributions to national discourse have become more controversial and have drawn the ire of the powers that be, what is not in doubt is his undying love for Nigeria and Nigerians, and his belief in the possibility of a new Nigeria where justice and equity wins. The choice of the theme of this celebration, Nigeria's unfinished business, the next steps, is apt. We face serious challenges as a nation. Many people have lost faith in the country. Some are even interested in the dismemberment of our country. But Nigeria is a potentially great nation. What is lacking is the leadership with the requisite abilities and skills to harness our potentials and take us to higher heights. Organizers of this event have lined up some erudite scholars and public intellectuals to address the issues of Nigeria's unfinished business, the next steps. Indeed, both the theme and the timing are right in view of the season we are in, the transition from Buhari administration to the next administration come May 2023. The 70th birthday anniversary of Bishop Kukah would also be devoted to raising funds for the permanent site of the Kukah Center. The Kukah Center is a Nigeria-based policy research institute founded by Most Reverend Bishop Matthew Hassan Kukah. Interfaith dialogue is at the core of the center's work and involves actively promoting conversations among Nigeria's faith communities as well as between leaders in faith and public policy. The Kukah Center aspires to become Nigeria's leading institution for the promotion of an active and engaged citizenry by providing support for inclusive dialogue and advocacy initiatives. I urge you to contribute generously to this noble project. It is a good cause and an important contribution to nation building and the sustenance of the worthy legacy of a great son of Nigeria and Africa, a cleric who has devoted his life to the shortening of the shadow of distrust amongst faiths, the promotion and defense of the fundamental rights and freedoms, the upliftment of the poor, the vulnerable, undeserved, and voiceless in Nigeria and beyond. Once more, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, I have the singular honor and pleasure on behalf of the government and people of Sokoto State to welcome you all to this auspicious event. Happy birthday to you, our big brother, Bishop Kukah. We pray for many more years in good health and many more blessings of the Almighty. Thank you.
I am here, I will say, to also join in celebrating a brother. They call him a priest, but me, I see him as an elder brother. I told him that several places I went, each time they turn around, they say, are you a brother to Bishop Kukah? I will say, what happened? That he said something, he wrote something last week. First, I will ask, what did he write? If it was a good one for me, I will say he's my brother. But if it was not a good one, I will tell him he is from Kaduna, I am from Plateau State. But all of us are here to celebrate you. You are 70, but to me, you are looking younger than 70. And my prayer, there are certain things you say about me. Please, at 70, don't say them again. Because you now have a lot of wisdom. So you are now a man of wisdom. So as we gather to celebrate you, we pray that the Almighty God will continue to grant you this wisdom, will grant you the courage, and will grant you the strength. So to say, yes, what is right. But sometimes when it is right, to some of us, if it is wrong, we will tell you that it is wrong. As politicians, I will say that all of us are gathered here. I will say Nigeria is gathered here. Africa is gathered here. The world is gathered here to celebrate a man. I don't know how to describe.
You would see that we have a strong delegation of governors here. Father Kukah, it takes some getting used to calling him Bishop Kukah, and he's not surprised when I say Father Kukah. It's not disrespect. I've known Bishop Kukah for the last 30, 35 years, and we spent a great deal of time together when he was at the School of African and Oriental Studies, and I was at King's College down the road. And since then, we've known him as good trouble. Many of us recall the person who is referred to as good trouble in American civil rights movement, the late John Lewis. And Father Kukah is our equivalent of good trouble. The pronunciation talked about always looking forward to Father Kukah's homily at Christmas and the trouble that is bound to come after that homily. It's predictable and we never miss it. But for me, Bishop Kukah has been a great inspiration in many respects. He's also been a frontline proponent of theology of engagement. Those who know me know I've always criticized the theology of disengagement. The Catholic Church cannot be accused of that theology of disengagement, the theology of, give unto God what is God and give unto Caesar what is Caesar. We recognize the place of government because government itself is a product of God Almighty. So to that extent, the Catholic social teachings are always propound engagement, and that is something that we know Father Kukah for. And he does it, as I said, it's good trouble, in very troublesome ways, in very irreverent manner, but always for the greater good, always in the overall interest of the people. And for that, we owe him a great deal of favor. Many of us talk about resistance to military rule and the various work. And when they mention people who are involved in those struggles, they will mention Asiwaju, Professor Soyinka, Chief Enahoro, Dan Suleiman, and a lot of Dr. Bekoran Somkuti and many others like that. Many would not normally refer to Father Kukah as active in that kind because he wasn't on the front line, so to speak. But I recall that he was a conveyor in many ways. Some of those, there are some things that you want to get through airports and nobody will check a priest. Because at the end of the day, he is the priest. And in those days, he used to convey a lot of documents to us from Bekor and Somkuti to myself in London, using the cover of being a priest, but again, always for the good of the people. And we have him to thank immensely for the role he played during that period. And you would all recall when he was at the Catholic Secretariat, that prayer for a country in distress, which he and his colleagues put together on behalf of the church. And for me, we've had several moments together. I recall Father Kukah calling me in the middle of the night. I think the day after he was appointed as a member of the Oputa Commission. And he called and said, "Aha, I have a job for you. Now, what are we going to do? Where are we going to start?" This was the Human Rights Violations Investigations Commission, and it was an enormous task that had been handed over to that commission by President Obasanjo. Justice Oputa, widely respected, a philosopher, jurist, was at the head of the commission. But the linchpin of that commission was actually Father Matthew Kukah, and roped me into that process and had to, within a short space of time, manage to bring together the late Archbishop Tutu and many of those who had been involved in truth commissions around the world, which led to the work that they did, which Father Kukah has captured eloquently in his book, Witness to Justice. So, Father Kukah is a man of many parts, and he's ruffled many feathers. In fact, he loves to ruffle feathers. And I don't know any government that has been in this country. It's interesting, President Jonathan is right there. If you ask him, he's had his own moments with Father Kukah. If you had President Obasanjo, he will tell you about the letter from Father Kukah. And if you ask General Sani Abacha, not least our very own President Muhammadu Buhari, who is his very good friend, but who he has engaged in rather irreverent manner, including through the Christmas sermons regularly. So, I won't say at 70, stop the good trouble. No. You have to continue the good trouble for the good of our country. So thank you, Father Kukah. Happy birthday. And on behalf of all my brother governors, we love you. We're proud of you. Thank you.
True guest of honor, His Excellency Dr. Goodluck Jonathan.
Please be seated. Please be seated. I thank the Kukah Center for inviting me to this program. I am pleased to be part of this celebration of my dear friend and our dear Lordship, Bishop Matthew Hassan Kukah, the Catholic Bishop of Sokoto Diocese. On the occasion of this his 70th birthday. Most wouldn't believe that you're up to 70 because you've been quite vibrant. It's a privilege to witness the unfolding in his life of the grace. It's a privilege to witness the unfolding in his life of the grace, of the promise of 70, which is the scriptural minimal. But of course, when the Bible talks about 10, it doesn't say that we should die at 70. So I pray that Father Kukah should add another 10. I joined other Nigerians, his friends, and well-wishers across the world to pray for God to grant him longer life in good health and the strength to carry on with his crusade for a just and functional human society. Some of the people who spoke talks about how Father Kukah bruised them. Father Kukah must bruise all of us. Because when you are living in a dysfunctional society and you are a clergyman, you can't keep quiet. In fact, Father Kukah asked whether he bruised me too. But see, the society we are managing is quite complex. Yes, I was the president, I tried my best, but does not mean that we had no issues. Now we are talking about ASU strike. During my time too, ASU had 4 months of strike. Different committees were meeting and nothing was working. And I said, how can our students stay out of school for 4 good months? I had to call a meeting of all the leadership of ASU. I presided over the meeting with my vice president. The attorney general was there. I said that night we must solve that problem. Attorney general was there. Secretary of Government was there, the ministers of education were there, the labor ministers were there, the finance ministers were, everybody that has to do with. And I thought that my being there will help us to do things quickly. But we spent the whole night. Before we finished, it was like 5:30 a.m. before we concluded. And the strike was called off. So there were issues. It is not surprising that the theme of today's conversation is focusing on what the organizers have aptly identified as Nigeria's unfinished greatness, the next steps. I cannot agree more. Nigeria is indeed a work in progress. And until that work is done, people like Bishop Kukah, who God has positioned as the conscience of the nation, will continue to be around to constantly hold us and show us that there is a mirror reflecting all of us that have been in leadership or in leadership. And Kukah, no apologies to anybody. Do what God has assigned you to do.
We have a distinguished panel that will interrogate this topic, and the moderator, Mokwe, if she is around too, I know her capacities. So I was invited as a special guest, so I will not say much. I believe the panelists will do justice to the topic. In the course of the last few years, since I left government, I have been involved in the work of promoting democracy, credible elections, and peaceful transition across Africa, which is the focus of my foundation, the Goodluck Jonathan Foundation. From what I know and I have seen, I cannot confidently say that the experience and struggle for development are similar across experiences are similar across Africa. Nigeria may not be where we want it to be now, but we should not give up. We should not lose hope. We should not focus only on the negative. Judging from where we are coming from, if you look at our story from amalgamation, especially from to 1960 when we gained independence, and especially from 1960 to date, at least we have progressed significantly. I know we have issues, but we have progressed. A nation is an organic being that sometimes suffers setbacks along the line. From 1960, the nation, no doubt, has had its own dose of setbacks. This cut across during this military time, during civilian rule, we have been experiencing setbacks. The worst was the 3 years civil war that really set us behind. But in every setback, there are always lessons to be learned and positive takeaways. Even if you take our civil war, as a nation, we're supposed to gain from it after the war, after the death and destruction. Because I remember then that, especially in the eastern region, some of the scientists started developing certain things to help fight the war. Even crude oil, they started crude refineries. They started explosives. Then there was no internet that you go and learn IEDs. I think it was the one they said was the Bunuge, and at the time they were detonating from a distance. So if those technologies were developed along the line, probably the military technology in Nigeria would have been better. Obviously, many people, especially our youth, are becoming increasingly disillusioned about our politics and our democracy. However, we must remain on the democratic path because it is the only practical way of effectively managing our diversity, managing our diversity, developing sustainably, and recording progress as a nation. The task before all of us is not to lower our guards, lest the democracy we cherish today succumbs to threats and recedes into fascism tomorrow. Because there are signs, looking across the states and so on, luckily some governors are here. We are derailing to some quasi-fascist form of government. Democracy is not all about election and winning elections. Democracy is about accommodation. We as leaders, especially now that elections are coming, leaders at the center, leaders at the state level, must accommodate different views. Politics is all about accommodation and inclusion. So the people will discuss, I believe that they will interrogate these topics very well. We must have a country that we all believe in. If you look at the statement made by our leaders, especially at independence, because we had 3 major regions and later the Midwestern region, people were thinking more about their regions. So even now, people don't believe that Nigeria is their nation. In fact, people will tell you clearly that Nigeria is not a nation. Yes, we know that in terms of technical definition, but it is not only Nigeria. that we have different nationalities coming together to form a country. Almost all the countries in Africa, I can say all. There's no country in Africa that you go, there's only one nationality that you would see maybe in the Arab world, in Southern America, and so on. But others have been able to come together and have a country that all of them believe in. So what is holding Nigeria back? And until we believe that we have a country, that no matter what you are, no matter how you worship, we have equal rights, then we have nowhere to go. When I was in office, there's some challenges, information that got to me, and I got worried. Some parts of southern Nigeria, if a Muslim dies, to get a land to bury used to be a problem. Some parts of the north, if a Christian group want to build a church, you cannot get land from the government. Some other person has to go and get land as a personal land before that person can donate to the church to build. And I set up a committee made up of governors that, look, we must move away from this division to not lead the country anywhere. Unfortunately, that came towards the tail end of the government and we couldn't go too far. But these are the things that worry us. A Nigerian must be proud of being a Nigerian, no matter how you worship your God. Look at just West Africa. Go to all the countries in West Africa. There's no country that you don't have Muslims and Christians. Why is that? Why is that of Nigeria is different, in different proportions? Nigeria in Africa, yes, countries have different problems. But in terms of religious, the crisis that religion is bringing to us, Nigeria's case is the worst in Africa. And we must cure that. The young people must cure that. And we must all consider Nigeria as our nation. Towards this goal, we are again faced with a good opportunity of choosing our leaders as the elections are coming up now. In fact, as we talk about elections, I now remember that I did not recognize Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, the APC presidential candidate, and my good friend Kashim, Senator Kashim, the running mate. Sorry, because I put here in my decision, but I was rushing, so I skipped some of the protocol. The elections are coming. It's an opportunity for Nigerians to select people they believe can build this country. I decide to be fairly neutral in terms of the politics. As a former president, I should be a bit reserved. I'm quite impressed that the recent statistics the INEC published, that from the last registration, about 71% were young people. The only problem is that the young people decided to register at the rush hours. They didn't register before. Otherwise, of course, the young population, in terms of demography, the youth are always more than the rest of us. So I believe that this country is in your hands. Most of us are looking backward. So you must select who you believe in at the local government level, at the state level, and at the national level. You should not be used for destructive purposes, going to snatch ballot boxes and destroying election materials. You must have this country and push your country. Today's program, as we have been told, is a twin event. We are also launching a fund for the Kukah School of Government. I congratulate the Kukah Center for the initiative of establishing the school, going by its antecedents and successes in the pursuit of his own mandate. I believe that the center has the capacity to deliver on this new project. Bishop Kukah comes from a long tradition of productively engaging the Nigerian state, while always deploying the experience of his considerable exposure, his own international reach, academic prowess, and sense of justice. Bishop Kukah is clearly one person whose name can give the school that is to be established the credibility it requires. When God blesses you, like Papa knows you emphasize that Bishop Kukah, first and foremost, is a priest. I agree. And when God blesses you with great intellect, like Kukah, as he has done in the different cases, the Almighty God will also give you other assignments to do. So Bishop Kukah will know it's not only winning souls for the Lord, but it's the conscience of society. And that is the role that it has played, and played very well. And it should continue to play that role. I believe that the Kukah School of Government is coming as a culmination of all other of Bishop Kukah's activities. And I believe that this school will help to come up with ideas. Intellectuals will come up, discuss key issues, and these issues will translate and cascade down. When intellectual issues are being discussed and are not presented as a form of partisan politics, people in government will listen. But when it is very confrontational to a government is made up of human beings. So when presentation becomes a bit confrontational, that's why you see people in government resisting and somebody will want to come and counter that statement. So the School of Government is an institution, so it will not behave like an individual. So they will be able to interrogate topics. Sometimes people talk about the national issues. What is the national issue? These are things that such schools can take up at the academic level, analyze it, and properly present it to people who want to contest election. As you are going in, this is what Nigerians want from you. I believe Kukah has done very well, and that for you to gather all these people here at this time shows how people appreciate you. So, on behalf of the Goodluck Jonathan Foundation, we wish you success, and we say happy birthday. Thank you all.
Of intellectual capacity. Yes, you are a short man. But I know one thing. No matter how short you are, you get out, you will see the sky. You are looking at the sky of who you are, the preliminary man today. It's not just the question of education alone. There are so many educated relics. It's about the character, who you are, consistency. You've persevered. We'll be in the trench together. You know my name. You didn't, because of that religion, discriminate. In terms of education, you're a big contributor. Both in America and in Nigeria. I can speak for you because of who you are. A great man, a great mind, a very resilient intellectual who had made positive contribution to our country. I listened to the panels. We appear to be in confusion about our nation. I heard about the second stanza from Coyote. Coyote had forgotten that we had one national anthem before that. It says, though tongues and tribes may differ, but in brotherhood we stand. And he sent me the second stanza too. It's a pledge that Nigeria, I'm ready to serve. It's about service to this country. We inherited speaking in tongues from the Bible. But our diversity is a promise for prosperity. You are building an institution in the honor of your 70. I am 72. I could say contribute. I'm just months older than you are. But Bishop, you will help build not the institution, but the greatness of a nation. It's on your shoulder, it's on mine, and we must build it together. I must, and I will, contribute handsomely, personally, to build and see to the completion of that institution, because it reflects something. Thank you very much.
To take over from
democratic era, I was barely old enough to vote. But of late, my career has centered around curating conversations around Nigeria's unfinished greatness. And I think that it is the apt title of the conversation which I've been asked to moderate this evening. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to please help me warmly welcome my panelists. The very first on the list is His Excellency Governor Kayode Fayemi, Chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum and Governor of Ekiti State. I don't have a lot of time, and as you can see, the people whom have been asked to moderate are talkers. At least I know 3 of them very well. Thankfully, I do not have to do a lot of talking. I'm just going to ask one question, and then you'll hear for yourselves. Kukah told me that the title of his panel, of this discussion, was inspired by a book you had recently published, titled Nigeria, Unfinished Greatness, Envisioning a New Nigeria. He's titled this, Next Steps. I tried to get a hold of that book. Sadly, it's not available in the bookshops, but I was able to get a speech. He thinks he can bribe me. It has to be autographed, sir.
It's seen as a watershed. In fact, most politicians and commentators will tell you that, this is the breaking point. This next election is so crucial to us. And then we go over it. It does not produce the magic wand. But my own attitude to this will be incremental, because nation building is always work in progress. No nation is fully built from the start, and unity is not automatic in any nation. But disunity is also not automatic. It is the work we put into the process of nation building, national cohesion, peace and justice that will determine how far we go. In fact, if you recall the second stanza of our national anthem, it talks about building a nation where peace and justice shall reign. So in that single statement, you have the mission of the country, and you also have the means to deliver on that mission. So the route to nation building is peace. The route to peace is justice and inclusion. And that is something that we've grappled with over the last 62 years. Of course, many of us would say a 62-year-old gentleman, and I think that's the age of our former president, President Jonathan. You are younger than that now, sir. Okay, sir. But a 62-year-old person is not a new kid on the block. But a 62-year-old nation is a nation in its infancy. I'm not saying that to suggest complacency on our part, but to underscore that we have the opportunity to still keep strengthening the bonds of unity. And I think that is the most challenging issue for us. We all tend to focus more on development, because that is really what is immediate to us. But you cannot give what you don't have. Development would only follow when we have a nation. And to have a nation, we need to have an elite consensus in which we all agree on what this nation means to us. I am not so sure we have arrived at the destination of that elite consensus yet. But that is the mission towards building Nigeria's unfinished greatness. But let me stop there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fayemi. Let me come to you, Dr. Sam Amadi. I'll be with you shortly, Father Kinwale. When you think about, and this is drawing from his first thoughts, and maybe the last line of what he said about elite consensus, why would you say that it's been so difficult for us to forge an elite consensus, if you agree with that statement?
Okay, thank you very much. I think he started by talking about incrementalism, that we need to make progress incrementally. But if you look at the history of countries, there are always moments of disruption. Moments incrementalism may not work. And so you have leaders disrupt that process, reconceive, and redefine. So the problem of elite consensus is that Nigerians have divergent conception of the problem they face. So I would like to start with a diagnosis to say that our problem has two planks. One is what I call foundational crisis. The other I call derivative crisis, meaning that these derivative crises can only be fixed if you resolve the foundational crisis. So there are three foundational crises. One is the role of religion in state. From 1954 to 1959, at the London Conference, Nigerian leaders did not create a consensus, what we can call incomplete theorized solution. So we couldn't agree on the nature of the Nigerian state. I had an opportunity to speak with President Wahid at Kennedy School when I was a teaching fellow there. And I asked him, Indonesia is a country of approximately 80-something to 90% Muslims. So why are you stable? Why didn't you people adopt Sharia at the beginning? And he told me that they decided to take out what we call public or criminal Sharia. So they were able to create a consensus and create a state that had the capacity to have a much more balanced state-religion relationship. That's the one crisis. You need to sort it out. It could take many forms. The strict separationist form in the US, France, the accommodationist form in the UK, the church partnership form in the German, but you must have coherence. First issue. The second issue is issue around citizenship and nationality. Citizenship and nationality. Nigerian leaders have failed to focus and take time and define whether they want to be a multinational state or a national state. The third one, I call it the productivity and merit crisis, which is basically, do you want to run a modern economy that's based on some sense of merit and egalitarianism? Do you want to allow prerogatives, patrimony, to define economic transactions? And so these three crises is where His Excellency talk about consensus. So if you have consensus of that area, then the derivative crisis, namely, for example, the fact that we have decentralized dictatorship. Local governments are not functioning. Local governments are almost like where you have authoritarian rule. The fact that we don't have efficient state service delivery, NEPA, where I worked, power sector, were able to resolve it. The fact that the Nigerian state is like ineffective state where values, rule of law don't operate. For example, we should be talking about oil bunkering. We should be talking about a state where oil is stolen. Those who may be responsible are known. We can't deal with them. You can't talk about a modern state. We have something as basic as things like oil block sharing. It never happens in modern economy. So the point is this. We need to create consensus around this core foundational crisis. Then the dynamics to resolve derivative problems will be there. But oftentimes, and let me end with this election period is like any other, like I said, but it's unlike any other. We have come to a point where you must be bold on all sides to disrupt, reconstruct, and redefine the Nigerian state so that it can enter the next century efficient and stable. We have two problems, social order and efficiency. And those problems relate to foundational lack of consensus on those foundational issues.
Where do you think we can start from if you were to do a prescription for the country to begin to correct the ills that injustices have wrought?
Conversation, usually when it comes to the Nigerian state, is always from a pessimistic point of view. But for me, I would think that the major issue is how we want to run a country by alternate reality. We want to run a country that is governed by rule of law, but we don't want to obey the law. We want to have a judiciary that works with laws, but those laws are at divergence with justice. We want a country where things work, but there are some people who feel that they are above the law. And that is why I kind of have a bit of a divergent opinion to the conversation around elite consensus. Because if you're going to run a nation, it has to be a defined territory with defined people and common leadership, which means that nobody will be placed at the edge, at the fringes of society, which is what we constantly do. And so at the heart of building the justice must be at the core of it. And you know, we always talk about the primacy of Section 14, the security and welfare. If we put that in context, what it means is if you fail in security and providing welfare for the people, you have failed completely. But Section 17C, which is probably the shortest provision in the 1999 Constitution, says that governmental actions shall be humane. And when the word shall is used, it gives no alternative. And we want to run a government that thinks that people exist for doings and that people should not be treated in a humane manner. You know, that provision just, makes the assumption that because there's a common humanity, leaders will act in that vice. And that is why earlier on, when the moderator, Mrs. Abu, spoke about how at the end of the day we're just human beings, we need to underpin that in terms of how we interact in this nation, that there shouldn't be certain people in this country who feel excluded, probably because of where they come from, the religion that they subscribe to, or their status in life.
Because oftentimes it does happen. People do feel that they have been relegated to the fringes. If you ask those of the Niger Delta, they'll have a story to tell you. If you ask people of the Southeast, they will have stories to tell you. If you ask the Talakawas of the North, they'll certainly have a story to tell you. So when it does happen that injustices, either perceived or real, have been perpetuated, how do we begin to address it? I think that's the question I was trying to pose, Ms. Gloria. Barrister Gloria.
All right, so if that happens, the law should take its course. And by the very nature of law, it should speak the same language at every point in time. Where the law is for a select few, then what you're going to have is not a country. You have mass chaos. And you know, for a long time, I have been advocating that Section 308 is not very helpful for our country. And I'll put it in context. This is a country where we are a do you know who I am kind of people. And so leaders, when they get into position, they feel that it gives them an advantage to break the law. In reality, when you are a leader, you're supposed to be held to a higher threshold. So if Section 308 allows you certain latitude, you commit infractions while in office, and then we're supposed to wait until after you have left office, the evidence at that time would have been wiped out. But then again, the real issue is, how do you describe a leader who doesn't lead by example, who believes that his job is to break the law and that he should be immune from interrogation? So this is really the structure, the fault lines that this country is built on that needs to be corrected. Our courts must work. And when I speak of law and the rule of law, governments have often treated the court as, a subordinate from the three arms of government. No, it cannot be. If we really want this country to work, then the rule of law should be at the forefront, putting everybody in check so that we can have law and order.
Thank you, Gloria. I'm going to come now to Father Akinwale. One of the statements which Dr. Fayemi made, and pardon me that I'll be quoting him a lot because he wrote this book, Unfinished Greatness. Interestingly, I see that you're not the first person to use that title. I know that when somebody was also writing about late sage Obafemi Awolowo, that title was also used. But I'm going to come to something you said, not in the book, but in a statement or, will I say, presser, which you delivered, which yesterday may have been laughed off as fringe ideas, have gained in influence to become mainstream. So, Father, I'm going to ask you again. I'm going to ask you, for the very first time, how do we bring back to the mainstream those who have now been pushed to the fringes, talking about and believing and espousing the belief that Nigeria truly should be one?
We need to begin by resolving a conceptual crisis. What do I mean by a conceptual crisis? Quite often when we speak about Nigeria, we collapse the distinction between country, state, and nation. We tend to think that the three mean the same. We tend to think the three are synonyms. A country is a territory. From the Latin contra terra, the land that lies ahead of you. A country is a territory. It is not necessarily a nation. A nation is an association of peoples. And I use that word in the plural deliberately because of diversity. A nation is an association of peoples who identify their shared core values. And on the basis of their shared core values, they give themselves a constitution which will now establish institutions that make up the state. What we have in Nigeria and in most African countries is a confusion where we think the nation is the state. The nation is reduced to the state. We have a country quite all right by the fact that we live within a territory, even if that territory is not secure, as we all know. But we don't have a nation. We have institutions that make up the state. We collapse the nation into the state. If you look at our Constitution, Section 2 of the current Constitution, and you don't find this in the 1963 Constitution, it ascribes sovereignty not to the people but to the state. That is dangerous. That means the state has the last say on any question. That means the state is more powerful than the citizen. That is a recipe for impunity. Because as we all know, the state is the head of state, or the governor, or whoever represents them. Whatever they say, we all have to comply, whether they're right or wrong. So we don't have a democracy in the true sense of the word. And until we have that, until we build a nation, we can't even talk of unfinished greatness. And I have to make a critique of the title of Governor Fayeme's book. It presupposes that there is a project that is unfinished. I am saying we have not even started the project. And we need to stop deluding ourselves. What are our shared core values? What are the things that bring us together, apart from the super egos? You know, when I had this experience, 2013, I was visiting a place called Do in Plateau State. The Plateau State governor is here. I got to Do the Friday before the Nations Cup final between Nigeria and Burkina Faso. And there was tension everywhere. But on Sunday night, when Nigeria won the game, the final match, the tension dissipated. And most people forget the fact that a young man from southeastern Nigeria received the ball from a young man from Pankshin who had to leave Nigeria because his parents were killed. Victor Moses passed the ball to Sundemba. Sundemba scored the goal. And we didn't even ask about the local government of origin of the scorer of the goal. So what are our shared core values? If you ask the Americans, they talk of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We don't have one. And it is when we begin to identify our shared core values that we begin to build a nation. What we have right now is a state held together at gunpoint. And when the state begins to oppress the citizen, there will be cries of marginalization, there will be secessionist and separatist agitation, there will be insecurity. Now we have set up Nigeria to be a place where the state is more powerful than the citizen, and the state is oppressive. We need to retrace our steps. Quite often, Nigerians ask, which is the way forward? And I say, if you are moving in the wrong direction, you shouldn't be going forward. You should make a U-turn.
Very powerful words, words to reflect on. You should not be moving forward. You should make a U-turn. I just heard right of reply. You'll have it, Governor Fayemi, you'll have it. Because I also know that there could be a critique of what you've just said, that, we never had greatness. but you pointed to the Super Eagles. And of late, our female athletes have been doing us proud. Oh, yes.
Athletes are telling us we can do better. But our athletes are also telling us we have not started.
It is indeed true. I mean, it shows where we can start, perhaps. Indeed. And that's what this conversation is about what the next steps are, what the next steps should be. You've spoken a lot about security. You've spoken a lot about a country held together at gunpoint. I do not know if Kabiru Adamu will agree with you. He is a security consultant. But I'm wondering how much of this unfinished greatness has now reflected in the security situation which we currently experience almost on a daily basis. Mr. Adamu, what are your thoughts on that, please?
Spiritual and temporal, the celebrant, thank you very much for this honor. No doubt we are challenged by security. The data is worrisome. I run a consultancy, and as of June of this year, about 6,000 of us have been killed. And that is worrisome. Going by that trajectory, it means that by December, about 12,000 may be killed. But the good news is that in the last 2 months, we've seen a change. Perhaps gingered by the Kuje incident, our security forces have woken up and looking at the statistics, July into August, the figures are coming down. So maybe by the end of the year, it would not reach that 12,000. That is something to cheer about. Now, virtually everything that I've been spoken about can be subsumed as the drivers of insecurity. To my left, she spoke about justice, or the inability of the justice system to punish offenders. And then we spoke about the structural imbalances within the Constitution. I would probably subsume everything into the phrase, let us democratize our security architecture. Let's make our security architecture responsible to the citizen in a manner where if there is no effectiveness, then those that are holding position within that architecture would be held accountable. We're not doing that at the moment. And that is why, unfortunately, we continue to see a deterioration within the security space. And without meaning to be pedestrian, it is unfortunately a legacy of the military era that we kind of took into the system. And I'm very happy that in the audience here, we have virtually from different sectors. So the legislative arm of government, as an example, would have that responsibility to look at the laws that have set up most of the organizations within the security architecture. Look at their laws, democratize them. Most of them were set up either during the military era or as far back as the colonial era. That element of responsibility within them, unfortunately, is not very strong. And to do that, we need to strengthen the monitoring and evaluation element within them. Let's use data, metrics, so that we're able to measure performance. Let it not be anecdotal. Let it not be by the basis of our whims and caprices. Let it be seen that if you are reducing abduction, it's clear that you are reducing abduction. Let it be seen that if you are reducing fatalities, it is clear that you are reducing fatalities. Anything short of that, unfortunately, would lead to a continuation of where we are at the moment.
Well, it's not an either-or. What I would like to say to my brother Father Akinwale is that if you think in binaries, yes, you would agree with this position, that it's good and evil. It's optimism and pessimism. The world is not like that. When I talk about unfinished greatness in my book, I'm talking about aspirational greatness. Everybody, every individual aspires to be better. And by even referring to the soccer example, Father Akinwale actually confirms the fact that there are signs of progress. there are evidence of development. It may be patchy, it may not be comprehensive enough, but to say that Nigeria does not have unfinished greatness, you only need to refer to where we have come from as a nation. I mean, Claude Ake, the late political scientist, writing in his book, The Feasibility of Democracy in 1995 or so, actually said, look, the colonial project that Nigeria is not meant to be a developmental project because it was a state capture project for the benefit of the British. But we've taken Nigeria away from that. Yes, you could even describe the post-colonial project, at least the military phase of the post-colonial project, as also a state capture project. But that would be an incomplete description because there were things that the military did which encapsulate those values that Nigerians are proud of. Our work on anti-apartheid, for example, our irrepressible defense of the ordinary Liberians and Sierra Leoneans. But that is not to suggest that you don't have a point by asking us to live up to our greatness and do more as a country to become a nation. Because we're not, but we often forget that we've managed our diversity and difference, as bad as things are, than countries in many other parts of the world. We got the word Balkanized from a particular region of this world, the Balkans, where countries that were all together had split into Yugoslavia, Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, you name them. We've held together. That is some progress. We now need to build on that greatness and strengthen it because no nation in the world comes automatically wholesale as one people. And that is why even the Americans you refer to talk about building a more perfect union because they believe that the union is not what they really want it to be yet. Our union is not what we want it to be. Nigerians are not happy with what we have, but we must not make the perfect the enemy of the good. Let's build on our good. Thank you.
Say that greatness is not just an aspiration, it is also a project. And what I'm saying is we may have the aspiration, but we have not yet started the project. So what we have right now is a wish list. For us to start the project, there are 3 foundational questions we must address. And our Constitution has not yet addressed them adequately. First, what should be the relationship between the state and the citizen? Secondly, what should be the relationship among the 3 tiers of government and the various institutions of government, the 3 arms of government? Our Constitution has not adequately addressed those questions. Thirdly, what should be the relationship between a citizen and a fellow citizen? If I violate your right, what are the consequences? We don't have institutions that protect us right now. And until we address those questions or begin to address them, we are not building a nation. We have not begun the project of transmutation from a state held together at gunpoint to a veritable nation.
Continue this conversation outside of your father. But we have those institutions. Are they working perfectly? No, they're not. But we have them in our Constitution.
Okay. This is the referee speaking. I'm going to come to you now. Barrister Gloria Ballasin, your closing comments, please.
So, when I thought about the celebration of Bishop Kukah today, I found that in 1997, after 30,000 civil servants were sacked by Colonel Ahmed Ali, Bishop Kukah wrote an article, "Who Will Save Kaduna State?" 25 years after today, the bishop could very well write the same article, but with worse facts. The state is landlocked. The issue of religious freedom is an issue. But if you move beyond Kaduna State and you speak about the country, we would even be talking about even more dire situation. 6 months after, 2.1 million students are at home, restless, able-bodied young people, and we want to solve the issue of insecurity. 234 soldiers have written because they want to leave their jobs. It's not because they don't love the country anymore. It's because they feel that the country does not love them. The judiciary and the head of the judiciary was removed by an expertise. The person who removed him was found somewhere in fisticuff. He retains his office. The Chief Justice is away. In another state, the person who came fourth position is now governor, while the one who the people gave the mandate is out of office. The issues are diverse. And so when the panelists spoke about when you're going the wrong way, the thing to do is not to continue on that path, but to make a U-turn. I totally agree with him. To build this country, we must be willing and invested in the truth. We must choose leaders with track record. If you have failed in the issue of security, you have no reason to present yourself again for elections. And speaking about our universities, we say that we award certificates in learning and character, but it is in the same universities that certain people of certain faiths are excluded. How do you explain that? And when you have professors who go to supervise elections, they are also caught by the very thing they should be solving. That is corruption. So my recommendation will be this. Are there magic bullets? I believe that there is a magic bullet. That we must learn to do what is right. That we must not be looking for loopholes that we will exploit so that we can now foist on the Nigerian state our own powers. That we must look beyond our own selves and accommodate everyone. Because if people don't feel a sense of belonging, you cannot also force them not to look for a state or some other place where they can feel fully human. And I hope that Nigerians will realize, just as the book says, that we can be great, but it will take much more than wishful thinking. We must invest in it.
And thank you so much. I'm going to come to you now, Dr. Sam Amadi.
Thank you very much. My last intervention would be to try to reconcile Governor Fayemi and my Lord Father. I think I was telling Governor, that he mentioned Claude Ake and basically supports the case I made. Because Claude's argument is that the character of the state is responsible for behavior, values of the state. So when my friend Gloria talks about rule of law, let me give this information. Nigeria was the first country in Commonwealth Africa to have a Bill of Rights in its constitution in 1960. The first in Commonwealth. Today, Nigeria is still classified as a hybrid democracy because its politics is authoritarian. So why didn't the constitution generate fundamental rights? Because the constitutional transplant doesn't align with the character of the Nigerian state. A character of neo-feudal state whose preference is prerogatives to elites, to traditional rulers, to priests, and not to citizens. So the Nigerian state is not a democratic citizenship, which means a state whose primary focus is on citizens per citizen. So these crises, whether it's of value, whether it's of rule of law failure, are just derivative crises of a fundamental character of a state. There are many types of states across the world. Every state determines what it produces in terms of values. Why would, for example, in many states, people who are accused of certificate racketing will not aspire for public office? Because the state cannot accommodate those contradictions. But in states like our own, which is a state built around privilege for rich, for powerful people, there is no contradiction that you cannot stomach. So I think the Nigerian politicians should just tell ourselves the truth. That we need to, this is not about ethnicity, we need to reconceive the Nigerian state before it can become an efficient, productive state. State character determines justice administration, rule of law, determines even values, determines whether ASU can shut down the university for 6 months and ask to be paid salary. These are all constructs of a state character.
Okay. It gives you much more to continue to reflect on than actually provide answers. I don't know if I'm the only one getting that sense. But I'm going to come to you, Mr. Kabiru Adamu, who to also take your own thoughts as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mokwe. I'm just going to highlight some of the statements that have been made. We're in a pre-election year, and part of the reason why we hold elections every year is to express our views and our desires. And I think everything that has been said before now speaks about our aspiration as a people. So we have an opportunity in 2023 to decide how we want this country to be. And the only thing I will emphasize is let's not lose that opportunity. The president has spoken about his commitment to a free and fair election. And in fact, he has demonstrated that commitment by the new Electoral Act and several other things that he has done. INEC is doing an amazing job. We're worried about security and how security could affect the integrity of the elections. But I must call on everyone, which is my closing remark, let's make a commitment to a peaceful election in 2023 where the views and of the generality of Nigerians will be respected. If we do that, then perhaps we would have created the platform for the solution and to achieve this unfinished greatness that His Excellency has provided. Thank you.
For your thoughts and your contributions, for your banter. I know that it's going to continue outside this hall, and I know it's all very healthy. Thank you so much for, will I say, awakening in us a quest to reflect even more deeply about our country. I have to thank Dr. Kayode Fayemi, the governor of Ekiti State and chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum. Father Akinwale, you didn't quite, Anthony, thank you. Father Anthony Akinwale, former vice chancellor of the Dominican University in Ibadan. I also have to thank Dr. Sam Amadi. Thank you so much. He's the director of Abuja School of Social and Political Thought. Mr. Kabiru Adamu, who is the CEO of Beacon Consulting. Thank you so much for coming on as well. And Barrister Gloria Balasin, who is the CEO of House of Justice. Thank you very much as well, Barrister Balasin. I'm going to leave us all with this thought. They're not my words. They're words I got from Dr. Joe Abba. It's very interesting how he started the review of this book, which I have now been gifted. Thank you, Dr. Fayemi, for the book. He starts by saying, new ideas and initiatives are often viewed with cynicism and the preemptive evaluative judgment of, it will never work, is passed on new initiatives before they even commence. Unfortunately, the pessimist is often right, and it doesn't work. When an intention is announced to tackle a problem, many commentators say, talk is cheap. I know it won't be implemented. When people start giving testimonies that things appear to be changing, the refrain is often, that is not enough. Is this what we should be celebrating now when others are sending probes to Mars? Anyway, I know it won't be sustained. And when eventually the optimists point out that the new initiative has actually been working successfully for a while now, the next statement is, that is not our problem now. For me, unfinished greatness, the next step, I know that Nigeria is an ongoing conversation. It's going to be a conversation, a continual one between the pessimists and the optimists. What I'm going to ask of us it's not to determine where we will stand on either side, because I know that on certain days we'll be optimists and on other days we'll be pessimists. The question for me is to how we will be adding to the cup. You know, when they ask you this question of how you see a glass of water, a half glass of water, whether you see it as half full or half empty. However you see it, ask yourself, how are you going to be contributing to ensure that that water in that glass cup continues to get full? Thank you very much for listening, ladies and gentlemen. And happy birthday once again, Your Lordship.
Ask the panelists and the moderator to stay together for a photograph. Thank you very much. And so this picture will be quick. A really quick photograph with the panelists. Okay. While this is going on, I'd like to call for a round of applause for a fantastic panel and moderation. It went very well.
I have been left with the most difficult task, the second segment of this very important occasion, which is the fundraising for the purposes of the construction of the permanent site of the Kukah Center. Let me start by making very few remarks. So much has been said about Bishop Matthew Kukah. Love him or hate him, Bishop Matthew Hassan Kukah is a true Nigerian who lives Nigeria, breathes Nigeria, and speaks for the good and well-being of Nigeria. Whatever he says, you ignore it at your peril. But when you internalize it, it is for your good. My Lord, Bishop Matthew Kukah, on the occasion, very auspicious occasion of your birthday, 7 for that matter, 70, I believe God is not done with you yet. As you continue to be the conscience and the mirror through which we can look at ourselves and our country in perspective. I want you to continue in that train because, like I said, whether we love you or we hate you, you are a true reflection of what a Nigerian leader of conscience ought to be. And for that, we remain eternally grateful to you. I will now go to the assignment that has been ascribed to me, which is to mobilize funds for the purposes of the permanent Matthew Kukah Center. I'm not afraid of that because I've had the courtesy of sitting amongst governors from the oil-producing states, starting from Emmanuel to Godwin to Dixon. By extension, Emeka was sitting there from Imo State. He is also part of the NDDC. So they have assured me that within the context of whatever you require, I've looked at the list and the sums of money that we are supposed to raise for the main office that I would assign to Ima because he is the highest producer of crude oil as of now. The second, the School of Government. Oh, okay. The first object here is 450 million naira. I'm ascribing that to Akwa Ibom because you are the highest producer. The second, which is the halls, library, classroom, offices, you hold place. You are a placeholder for the governor of Bayelsa, which is about the second or the third largest producer. Having said that, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is a moment where we need to show faith. So much have been spoken about the integrity of the man that we are celebrating today and the things that he has done for the well-being and betterment of our society and country, Nigeria.
Your Excellencies, let me rest on the already established protocol. I think I was well brought up by my parents not to despise the authority. I have with me here the Chairman, Nigeria Governors Forum, Chairman, PDP Governors Forum, and I have, in those days when we were in financial services, there's a man when you want to go for lunch, you time whenever he's going for lunch, and he will buy all of us lunch. Asiwaju himself, the Jagaban himself, and P.O. Akenyelure. We cannot forget it, sir. So if they are all here, we cannot, can't just come from behind and then speak when they've not spoken. But be that as it may, for the respect I have for my Lord, the Bishop, somebody I respect so much, somebody anywhere I am, I use just 2 words to describe him: character and charisma. And that will summarize everything that he stands for. For that respect, I want to believe that on behalf of my people, I have a check here for him, and trust me, it's something very, very good. God bless you all.
His worthy cause. My brother from Akwa Ibom has led the charge. I'm surprised he only spoke about himself, because our agreement is that from our zone, he's going to coordinate all of us. Because as I was coming here, the former governor of Bayelsa said, please note, the deputy governor who just left also has a message, announce his own. So I thought you were going to coordinate us. But having not done that, for us in Edo State, Bishop Kukah means so much to us. And we cannot do everything in one go. So today, I'm here to say, Bishop, thank you for your call last night. We have a commitment. It may not be as large as what Akwa Ibom has done, but it is significant. But beyond that, my night's job is to raise money. I'm now personally committing that I'm going to work with the foundation to go out there to raise funds for this center. Congratulations.
Thank you very much for doing this job with such professionalism, keeping us on our toes. I'm really short of words. I don't know what again to say that has not been said. But I really feel vindicated that from the words of the Minister to Archbishop Kagama to last person who spoke, that at least with me you have an idea about where you stand. It is our job as priests. And if you look at scripture, from John the Baptist, when Jesus Christ had kept his mouth shut, he just went around healing people, curing them of all their diseases, feeding their hungry, and doing everything that needed to. 60 or 70 or 100, he would not have fulfilled his mission. Our responsibility as priests, and we do it differently. People always think that, and I quarrel with a lot of people to explain it. Look, I am convinced that I'm an average student. The only thing is that I have strong convictions, very, very strong convictions about things I believe in. In borders and stubbornness, and somehow This country doesn't give you any room to do anything different. Our job as priests, agents of the gospel, is to comfort the afflicted. That much we do. But we also have the duty to afflict the comforted. So we comfort the afflicted, and we have to afflict the comforted. So those who seek in comfort must understand that they are asked to, because there is a correlation between their enjoyment and our suffering, as we can see. So, they pay me. Forgetting the way we can fix it. I want to say that I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that the seeds we have sown by setting up this initiative are seeds that will grow, they would uplift us. I have no illusion that we will see the fruits of what we are doing in less than the next 25 or more years, at which time we will probably all be gone. But the decision to set up this center was for me the easiest way of not going mad. Because the Lord has been so extraordinarily gracious to me that the first sign of government presence in Nigeria, which is my village, first sign of government presence was when the dead body of one of my cousins was brought home with a government vehicle. He had died and had been killed during the Civil War. I was lucky to have his body brought. So that was the first sign of government presence in my village. And I believe that Nigeria represents or is a metaphor for millions and millions of other communities in Nigeria that our society has deliberately decided to forget. So we really have a duty and a responsibility. But after the experiences that I have had, first thing I wanted to do, when my grandmother came back from Kaduna, she was trying to explain to us, grandchildren, what Kaduna looked like. And one thing she tried to explain to us was the magic of electricity. And she spoke in such a dramatic way that, it's like in Kaduna, if you choose to live in that way, that's your business. But in the middle of the night, you can create light. That's the way she put it. And you just place your hand on the wall, and darkness suddenly vanishes. When I decided I wanted to become a priest, it's always for the wrong reasons. The Archbishop is here, all the bishops are here. None of us can say that we wanted to become priests to quote unquote preach the gospel. It was always about things. Either we saw the Sultan and we fell in love with him. But in my own case, I had the joy of serving Mass and serving it in Latin. And I still remember the sentiments of holding the hem of the priest's chastity. When you are saying Miyako, you have to bend your head in a way that it touches the hem of the. At that moment, that was my excitement. And I tried to convey this excitement to my grandmother, but she didn't, because she wasn't going to church. And I said, I would like to become a priest. And my grandmother said, asking, what do you mean? The only vehicle I saw in my life was the pickup driven by a parish priest. And whenever he sets out, I think Madame Priest somewhere, but he wasn't holding up there. But whenever the priest set out, we would go and hide in the grass, because there was one part of the road that was very bad, where the motor has to stop and then crawl out. That was the time we jumped from the grass to enter the pickup. It was the only chance we had of being in the moving. And we would stay in the pickup for maybe 2 kilometers or 3 kilometers until the priest finds another bomb. They will all come down and start trekking 3 or 4 kilometers. They just think they will really do that. So when I went to my grandmother, she said to me, this priesthood, there is nobody around of the priesthood in the sense of an African. I've never seen a black people, I've never even seen a Somalian. So my grandmother said, so this, what will happen to this black skin? But the only person we saw was a white man. I told my mother and my grandmother that they said that black people can also do this thing. He said, but where will they take this black skin to? I said, no, that even including the black skin. But she still was not persuaded until she asked me, so, you are a priest? You will be able to enter a vehicle and drive like this white man? I said, yes. And she said, the matter is over. And I remember sleeping in her room on the floor. And I will wake up at 9, wake up at 1 o'clock or 2 or whatever time. And my grandmother was there weaving basket. Because she needed to raise 3 shillings to pay for the food. And we had only 1 month. That's why if you see my coat of arms, you will see a basket somewhere in my coat of arms. It's a memory of my grandmother because it's from the money of that basket. So when I look back now, I say to myself, by the time I became a priest, my maternal grandmother had died. But I had a vehicle which I could drive, a Volkswagen. The first thing I did when I knew how to drive, the first journey I set out was a journey back to my village. I went and carried my maternal grandmother, who was not part of this conversation, put her inside the car, drove the car, brought her back. I paid off my debts. But now I have more than a pickup. I have 2 cars in my house, or should I say 3? And I wish my grandmother were alive. But to cut a long story short, when I go to the village frequently, young people in my village have left home, some of them don't want to go back. But I go home and I've been doing so consistently for the last 46 years or so of my priesthood. One, to remind myself, just in case I have any illusion about where I came from and where God took me from. And I say this because with a sense of humility. But for me to have left from that village without a road and then ended up being thrown into the orbit, like I've shaken hands, I've said that the Holy Father will appoint me, I've served under 3 popes. The bishops of Nigeria, to whom I owe eternal gratitude, first to the Catholic Church, without which I probably would have been married to 3 wives and 1 husband. Because I've seen my those I left behind in the village, the good children and grandchildren, many of them are almost working with a stool. So I owe my eternal gratitude constantly to the church. And no sacrifice can ever be too much in the face of our faith. Some of my Protestant brothers always, one of my friends told me, he's a judge, he's a lawyer, and they were in the Supreme Court for the case. And the judge had not come, so they were chatting outside. And they overheard 1 or 2 Protestants complaining. I've written an article in the Guardian. They were saying that when Father Kukah is talking about this Catholic church, talking as if other churches don't exist. I said, well, you eat your mother's soup, not because other women are not cooking. And so I made the point because for the Catholic bishops of Nigeria who have taken the risk of making me Secretary General, Deputy Secretary and then Secretary General, it was a risk because I already had a mouth. And a mouth that everybody knew. Usually, when we go into an argument, that time, as Bishop I was at, I would tell him, I said, you're great. You brought me here and you took a risk. I will never embarrass the church. I'll do my best. There are all very, very strong views which, unless you counter them by a superior argument, I'll do my best to defend what I know. And some years back, when we launched the strategic paper for this center, the Jonathan was still president, Archbishop Kaikama was there, Archbishop Naika was there. And one thing Archbishop Kaikama, I can say that I'll never forget, when he stood up to speak, he said, well, we have always been worried about what Bishop Kukah has always been saying. All these provocations, all these things, sometimes we get a bit nervous. He said, but to our greatest shock, the Pope decided to make him the bishop, meaning that the noise he has been making, the Pope is happy with the noise. And I say so because the Kukah Center is an attempt to assemble strands of God's blessings and graciousness to me. What I've experienced, what I've learned. 80% of what I've learned is not from reading books. It is from the real opportunity and privilege that I have. Of coming from a little dot of a community, and then suddenly finding myself struggling across the length and breadth of Nigeria. When my old man was alive, I would go home and my father would say to me, look, why do you still come to this village? What we have no road. Why do you still come here? We hear you on the radio. Stay with your young people in Lagos. And then when you hear that we are dead, you can come home when you like. Don't be wasting your time here. Or sometimes we'll be sitting down without light and chatting. And my father will say, these big people in Lagos who are looking for you. If they knew that this small village, they just come and beat us and hide you away. But as I said, I felt that this center is the best opportunity for me to domesticate those blessings to me. I spent time, a year and a half, in Oxford. I have served in 4 or so presidential initiatives. My book, Witness to Reconciliation, which is next to Witness to Justice, will come out maybe in about 2 months' time. But what shocked me was the day President Obama just sent for me and said he wanted me to serve as chairman to reconcile Shell and Ogoni. I said to myself, okay, see, I was at home, you took me out of my parish. And I want to go back to continue parish work. And he said, don't worry, if you agree, I spoke to your bishop last night, he told me no problem. And I was happy that President Obasanjo would tell me that he knows the discipline of the Catholic Church. And I've gotten used to knowing that he has to clear with the Archbishop. That enough was good for me. When the Yar'Adua appointed me to serve as a member of the electoral committee, Kukah Justice Way, I was in the United States on holidays, and I was in a part of the United States that was a bit of a ban, so my phone shut down. And they called and while I was on the day with one of my friends who is a priest. So when we set out to go to drive to New York, immediately we came out of the van, I started hearing on my phone, text messages. So it turned out somebody had been sending me messages that they are looking for me in Nigeria. I returned the call and they said, the president is looking for me. I said, for what? But what was interesting was because they were going to announce the list of those who have been appointed to the Electoral Reform Committee. If you go back and look at the newspapers, instead of calling my name, the president put in bracket, there is still a member to be included. But the matter is still unclear, something like that. So when I came back, I remember the day I stood face to face with Yar'Adua. He looked at me. He said, you know, he wanted to appoint you. Even despite being my president, I know the Catholic Church. If there is such a disciplined organization, I know that if I appointed any people will be clapping and dancing, but not with the Catholic priest. That for me was a deep thought. So I just want to say that I believe that this center, one of the things I learned in Harvard was that There's nothing new. Even the Bible before the Bible has said it. But not in scriptural terms. Harvard believes that there's no problem that is new under the sun. And that the best thing to do is to equip people with enough tools to be able to go out and quote unquote solve the problems of their country. The problems of Nigeria are not surmounted. And I want to thank you because of this, what I decided to do to celebrate this event was to do three things. First, as you notice, we are not eating here and drinking. Because I found it scandalous. When we booked for this place, it was the Senate Senator Nixon who paid for it because I said 4 million naira for just a hall. I was counting. He said, okay, Bishop, don't worry, I will pay. So as the group we were meeting, then we say, what about food? He said, let's ask. Sheraton said you cannot enter here with water. You cannot enter here with food. I said, Eugenia, can you go and beg them? They said, 1 bottle of water. 900 naira. Sheraton said, you can't enter. His about to come in aggression. He didn't even know her. She just heard about this event. And she donated, I think, 250 or so cartons. If you want branded water, it's still lying there and sent. Then we say, okay, we keep people here without feeding them. Why don't we say, what about, okay, small chop? Sheraton says small chop, it will be small pop. One chop, he said 5,000 or 6,000. So I'm responsible for your not eating. But I also know that we are here to make sacrifice. So we agree with the committee that we will provide you food at a different location. So dinner will be served. I want to end, Your Graces, Lord Bishops, by thanking you. Because this for me is the political wing of the my birthday celebration. The spiritual wing of the celebration will be marked by a mass of thanksgiving in Sokoto on Saturday. During that, we are going to raise money again. And this raising of money in Sokoto will be according to our strength, which is not much. We are raising the money because I can see very clearly in Sokoto the way this country is going. We are not dealing with post-banditry Boko Haram survivors of Nigeria. And I'm personally convinced that where we are now, the solution is that even if peace returns, there is no substitute for education. So we are going to try and raise money in Sokoto because I told my parishioners, no uniform, no gifts. Last night my niece broke the road and she came with a bag of gifts to me. The teacup was very nice. But if you notice, everything you see, anybody going around with t-shirt was paid for by great source. So we'll be having that celebration in Sokoto. And the idea behind that celebration, among other things, for us to raise a little bit of money. We can have a little bit of money, we can at least begin to give children a little bit of scholarships here and there, just to make sure that Boko Haram doesn't come back again after 10 or 15 years. A little contribution we can make. Then finally, the third phase of the celebration, which will take place in Kaduna. That one, everybody can come and everybody can eat. I think His Grace has already granted that permission. So this is where we are. The Kukah Center is going to do a lot of things. This morning, I was almost in tears, really seriously, when a group of young people came to see me. And one of them was their leader, about 3 years or so ago. He walked to Kukah, they booked an appointment to see me. When the young man saw me, he said he didn't believe that he could sit down with me face to face. So he find looking young, I said, Bishop, please, we want to invite you. Can you come and dedicate an initiative that we have started? They described it to me that it was for young people. I felt excited. So I followed, I gave them an appointment, and I did keep the appointment. I got the check for them, prayed for them, they were not happy. Now, this morning, Father Bagino told me 2 days ago that I booked a appointment, they wanted to see me. The young man walked into, we were all sitting. I saw maybe people there about 20 or 24 young people. But what gave me the greatest joy was that out of this group, there were only about 4 men. All of them were beautiful young girls in their 20s, and I don't think any of them was up to 30. And their leader said to me, Bishop, we cannot thank you enough. I'm now employing 46 young people across Nigeria. So this is our dream. But we cannot continue. I'm sorry I'm taking you too long, but I will realize that this system is so greedy. The greed is not about to reduce. And the best we can do now is to appreciate that government cannot do everything. But let's begin to equip young people to take their destiny into their hands. Because in the final analysis, no government anywhere in the world employs 5% of this population. So the rest of us have to find something to do. Technology is coming. Sooner than later, drivers will have no job. So we can see where the world is going. And that is why the award to these young people, the idea of Dr. Manzo, I didn't know Dr. Manzo before. He's from Southern Africa. I never even heard of his name. One of my friends, Simon, called me and said, there's a gentleman who says he wants to see you. I said, for what? He just admires you. I said, okay, let him come. He came and sat down with me and said, he went on and on, things I had heard before, about my imaginary greatness and so on. And he said to me, I want to put down 10 million naira to honor you. The 10 million naira is each. I said, so we do what? He said, I want to build a leadership award around you. I said, 10 million naira. I said, yes. I said, okay. I thought it was better to collect the 10 million first before we start. I said, well, what of next year? He said, no, I can follow this project for another 5 years. I can assure you. I reached out to Father Gatido, and the man gave us the 50 million. So, but when he showed evidence that the money was ready, I said, okay, sir, let me make you our own proposal. If you agree, fine. If you don't agree, I'm sorry, keep your money. But I'm not going to give an award to anybody in Nigeria because I don't see, after all, the awards are giving, and though the awardees are the ones who give you money. So, and I said, if I start giving out 10 million naira, before I know what is happening, the setup of the with you who want to go to change me back in India. What to do? So I said, no. So I told him, look, can we do something that is futuristic? So let's do this. I would like us to challenge young people. Let's say age 5 to 10. Let them get into ICT competition, which is colorless. It has no ethnicity. It has no all the things that worry us. So we have the competition. The first prize will be 500,000. Second prize will be for young people 20 years. No, 11 years to 20 years. The prize will be 1 million. The third category will be young people 20 to 30. With 2 million. That means we are spending 3 million, 500, we still have 6 million, something. So what we have seen today is the realization of that. And for me, this is one of the most exciting things for this celebration. Because I was very surprised. I then told them, I said, can we then negotiate in the way I found out that, what do you call them, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, all these big people, that whoever wins the first prize can go to Seattle or wherever for the 5-6 month internship. And we want to thank our son, Frank, who is in charge of research technologies in Kaduna, and the chairman, Dr. Raf, and the chairman, Dr. Manzo. Because not only the energy, if you go to Kaduna and you go to research technologies, frankly, I tell you will not believe that in Kaduna. Where young people are doing incredible things the technology. I want to thank you for the energy that you put into this. And from what I hear, the tech giants are very excited, and next year we will do this again. But we are probably going to have people who are so excited about this project that among other people, you will not believe it, who are showing interest in the project is Akin Adesina, Chief Executive of African Development Bank. Because they are also very anxious about putting technology in the hands of children. So I want to thank you for honoring us. I believe that more and more people will invest in this project. Finally, Bishop Anselm is not here. He was dutiful the chairman of this committee. 99% of the work was done here was done by the committee. I contributed literally nothing except my presence. I want to thank the entire members of the committee through Bishop Anselm, who is unavoidably absent. By Virginia, who graciously accepted to do this for us. I don't want to call every member by name, but I want to thank. Where is Sami? Sami is an Indian. I think he's gone out here. He's a personal friend of mine. He's the chief executive of Kukah Technology, Indian equivalent of Twitter. He goes about telling people that I recommended it. But I was just sitting there minding my business. I got an email from India asking whether I knew this young man and whether I thought they should give him a job. And I said yes. And he's now here. But he also contributed tremendously. So our hope is that our children can grow from this to God knows. By the time we are all gone, it will be a thing of pride to hear that through this initiative, one or two Nigerians can become tech giants also. So once again, I want to thank everybody, your graces, my lords, brothers, sisters, fathers, that are going to the Cheta and all of you who have stayed here all through. I believe the next year we will do it again. It's slightly different than 25. But I want to assure you, I want to assure you. By the grace of God, next year, this building will be completed top to bottom.
Hey.